Woke up early, dawn's out shining. Coffee brewing, thoughts align.
I'm Fred McMurray, and I'm back again with Ray Pillar and Jim Treleaven for another interesting episode of Pillar's Principles, Success Principles for Business. Jim, Ray, who's our guest today, Jim?
Our guest today is Steve Eich, who I've known for quite a while now. He is a very successful serial entrepreneur. And we also share an alma mater.
And which one is that?
University of Minnesota.
Thank you, Jim.
No football, no sports, just no sports. Just remember,
You know, the Golden Gophers. Okay, we're good.
We'll go ahead and welcome, Steve. This is disjointed show.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I know Jim well.
We
In
do.
one of my previous companies, he sold it for me and did a great job.
All right. So you're a serial entrepreneur. What was your first company you started?
My first company was a spin-out from Bell Labs called Visual Insights.
And what did they do? When I hear Insights, there's something I think of, but I know it's the wrong company. So what did they do?
We had visualization software to help analysts understand large amounts of information. We had this was 1999, before the year 2000. If you remember way back, everyone had problems with their COBOL programs, trying to figure out which programs were going to crash at the millennium. So we had a really cool product that would show the lines of COBOL organized in files to show you which lines had to be changed to be compliant with the year 2000 COBOL program.
Yeah,
cool.
that worked.
I should also add that in keeping with many of our guests, Steve is also a PhD. So,
PhD in statistics and a fellow of the American Statistical Society, given to 1/3 of 1% of the members each year.
Wow.
We seem to be collecting them quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
I have
it's not a
over 30
requirement,
patents.
Steve, but you're right at home. So.
So just as a side note, I worked for a company called Treleaven for a short time. Are you familiar with Treleaven?
Oh yeah, their building is over on Deal Road.
Yes. So, well, yeah, Mike died some time ago, and I don't know what happened to the company, if it's even there. So,
All right. You got a question for him, my friend, other than just chit-chatting there?
sure. So I understand you have a new venture going on that sounds quite interesting, and it's called ViaStrategy.
Oh, that's an old one, my
That's an
friend.
old one. So there
That's
are
an old
newer
one.
ones. There
Oh,
are two
okay.
newer ones.
The newer one. It's kind of related though, is it not?
I have two companies going right now, which is keeping me super busy. One does a field service app, which is super exciting. Field service companies are things like your grass cutters, your HVAC people, your roofers, anywhere where you need to dispatch technicians to do a job on a site.
That sounds really interesting, and that's encompassing of everything, including the dispatch and all the way through payment.
Yeah, we do dispatch, tracking of the technician, time on site, how long did it take to complete the task, optimize the routing, collect the payment when the work is done, take pictures that can be completed, reports for how efficient you're using your staff, automated scheduling, a very full-featured app. Now, they're a huge market. I was checking yesterday on ChatGPT. The field service software market is growing, according to ChatGPT, at 21.5% a year for the next 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, anywhere you're in a good market, everyone's going to do well. No, we have a fully featured product. What's sort of innovative is our go-to-market strategy. Well, the problem with having 24 million field service companies is it's super difficult to sell to them because the owner, they're typically 82% of them are less than 25 vehicles. So the owner's typically out sort of managing the company and isn't in a position to do, web advertisements too. So our innovative strategy is the first white label offer where it can be sold through a channel. Such as
so I got a question on this. So 24 million, I'm assuming that's all size of companies from the solopreneur up to the large size ones. And you said white label, which means if I'm one of those solopreneurs, I can actually stick my logo on that app and have it look like me.
exactly.
So when I think about that, I think about, getting on Google Play or whatever the Apple version is. Are the owners able to get their version of the app on there?
Absolutely. It's a branded app, a branded portal. It's their version. So it looks like them. So it comes out under their name so that they can upsell their customers and own the customer relationship.
That's awesome. That sounds like a game changer.
Yeah.
God, I think it is. So we've just last month, we completed the product, signed up our first resellers. So we have 10 companies reselling. We've already put 40 technicians on the system, on the platform. And my sales guy told me this morning that he was just given 400 leads to upsell from one of our big resellers.
Whoa.
One of the things you forgot to mention, Steve, is the name of the company.
Well, I was going to get there. What's the name and what's the website? But that's beside the
The
point.
name of the company is Kaleidscope.
Kaleidscope. Okay.
Yeah, all the good names we're taking is the only thing we could think of.
It means it encompasses all the colors of the spectrum.
It does, yes.
Okay, so I'll ask the question. You've owned 5 other companies. What got you 4 others? Fair enough. I was 4 others, 5 total. What made you interested in going after this market?
Well, I tell you, the real thing that made me interested in this goes way back, is my hobby is to buy rental houses. And every now and then I pick up a rental house and the property management company manages it for me. And every month it seems like there's big expensive repair bills. No documentation to support it. One time I drove by one of the houses, I saw the management company's van there. And so I went inside only to find the technician sleeping on the floor. So I always wanted some way to know, what are they doing that's taking so much time and why is it so expensive? Let's get some, reporting on this. So the sort of personal motivation that sort of led to, let's see if we can turn this into a business.
Wow, somebody sleeping causes a new business to launch. That's pretty cool. Jim?
Well, let's segue a little bit. We can come back to Kaleidscope as well, which is a great application. Your other new startup, Foodtrace AI, has similarities to ViaStrategy, your prior one, in the sense that it is sort of motivated by government regulations. Why don't you tell us about that, Steve?
Sure. So just really quick, some brief background on ViaStrategy, which is a company I sold to Vista, to Omnitrax, which is owned by Vista Technology Partners, a huge PE group. So ViaStrategy, we also had a white label offer, and we had selling ELD, electronic logging devices, as a feature into the fleet tracking companies. So the ELD
really cool application, though, actually, when you think.
Yeah. one of the government requirements for commercial truck drivers is they have to track the number of hours that they're driving to make sure they don't drive when they're fatigued. And so they're required to have what's called an electronic logging device that has to monitor the driving and record the hours, getting ground truth in the vehicle so that they can't drive when they're out of legal driving hours.
Mm-hmm.
So at that company, I had 92 companies reselling the software and the best ELD platform in the industry, but it was all, again, white labeled. The ELD requirements are completely specified for the government, and there's hundreds and hundreds of pages on what you have to do. And this also varies by state. Each state has different regulations, and it also varies by country because we supported the USA, Canada, and Mexico. So it's very difficult software to write just because of all the intense regulations. So I got very good at sort of reading the regulations, writing code to implement the regulations, for our ELD product. And when we sold that company, I was looking around for something else to do. I noticed that there were some new regulations required from the FDA, which require tracing of anything on the food traceability list, which are foods that are typically associated with disease. So what the FDA wanted to have the ability to trace an illness, a food illness, back to the system to find the root cause of what's causing the food illness. So they had written hundreds of pages of, I think 197 pages on the regulation on what your record keeping had to do. So basically, in the event of a food outbreak at a restaurant, the restaurant has 24 hours or more time if they can negotiate with the FDA, but they have 24 hours to send a sortable spreadsheet that contains a list of all the key tracking events for shipments they've received of anything on the food traceability list. They have to email to the FDA. Now, in theory, you could do that manually, but in practice, you can't because there are too many things to do. So we have a record-keeping application with AI to analyze your supply chain that we're just in the process of launching in the industry to meet this new government mandate. Actually, it's for the requirement starts at the farm, goes from the farm through the harvesting, through the packing, through the manufacturing, through the distributor, all the way down to the restaurant. Each entity in the supply chain has to keep what they call CT, critical tracking events, that tell when anything on the food traceability list is received, transformed, or sent to the next entity in the list to enable this complete traceability in the supply chain of foods and the FTL.
All right. So when I hear this, I flash back to my days in the meat industry, and back then it was Mad Cow, and at that point the industry was fighting against having to do barcodes, because I remember having to make sure the barcode printers and system was printed out. So from what I'm hearing now, it's sounding like even I know more about cattle. So from the point in time that farmer has that calf that's sent to a feedlot, sent to a slaughterhouse, sent to a packing house, so on and so forth, meat-wise, you'd be tracking all of that.
Absolutely. Although beef is not on the FTL.
Okay.
More like things like vegetables or things associated with food illnesses.
Give them time. Give them time.
Or Mad Cow will come back. But
yeah. Jim, you got a question? Ray, jump in.
Go ahead, Ray.
Well, I don't know if I have a real question, but I think the whole concept of Kaleidscope should take off, because I know a lot of independent people who just can't afford what sometimes a franchise will give you in let's say the air conditioning business, and they really don't want to spend the money on a franchise, but that they need the systems that they have to offer, and that sounds like what you have.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and like I said, we're coming in at a disruptive price point. The competitors are like 200 to 250, and we're coming in at 25.
So one of the things I did notice is one of the things that's taking over the restaurant industry is these little screens on every table where you can not only place your order and it's delivered to you, and then you can pay your bill right from that little screen. I think Chili's is one that has one of those,
Mhm.
and that's taking over the restaurant market because you know, in my travels, I've been to some off the road, non-franchise local restaurants, and they have these devices. Yeah, I think what you have there with Kaleidoscope is really great.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm pretty optimistic about food trace. What I really like about that is with the government requirement, I know the customers have to buy. It's just where they're going to buy from.
So one thing that we didn't mention is that mandate goes into effect January 1st, 2026.
Oh, okay.
January 20th, 2026. And so
January
there
20th.
are
Okay.
9 months to comply with the regulation before everyone has to comply.
So by end of next year, everyone's got to comply.
Beginning of next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if it was 9 months from January 2025, or if it was 9 months from now. Fair enough.
January 2026, they have to comply.
Okay. So next year, next January, if they're not, then life is bad for them.
Correct.
All right. So these are the two new businesses. What is it about starting businesses that you find interesting, exciting, enjoyable? Why not go and sit in Puerto Vallarta and watch the sunset, or drive around?
And/or stressful, right, Steve? But go ahead.
Well, when I tried to get a job, no one would hire me.
That's not true, but okay.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Okay, but so I give Jim flack that I know that he will die. He will continue teaching until the end of the semester, and then we'll grade all the papers before he finally lets them bury him, and that's when he will finally drop, because he ain't gonna quit.
Yeah.
And until he's dead, he's gonna be on the screen with me because I keep bothering. So why not just sit back and relax and do nothing? You don't need a new job.
I'd be
You could
bored.
just, okay, boredom.
Works for me.
Yeah.
I'm
You
older than
need
Steve,
something
so
to
it's
get
okay.
up and challenge yourself every day.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing like a good challenge.
All right. So if you were talking to a person considering starting their own business or going off to work for somebody else, what would you tell them about starting your own business?
I would say that each company you need to figure is going to take about 5 years to know if you're going to be successful or not. So you don't want to wait. First, it's super good to spend, a few years working for other people to learn how businesses work. But you don't want to wait too long, because the more tries you get, the more chances you have to be successful. In each one, I've learned new errors not to make again. So it helps to have enough time to do multiple attempts.
All right. So as one error you make is trying to breathe while drinking coffee. So what are the 3 biggest errors that you see small business or new business owners make?
Not listening to the customer. Listen to the customer, they'll tell you everything you need to know.
Okay. What
I'd
else?
say,
In every class I teach about entrepreneurship or strategy or whatever, and they haven't thought about it, that's the first thing I tell them. The most important thing is talking to the customer for sure. And
So mistake number 2 is running out of money.
Mm. Okay. Mistake number 3.
For software businesses, I'd say it's engaging and developing the product before you know your product market fit and who you're going to sell to and how you're going to sell to them.
So know your market.
that actually makes me think of the first company that I ran, and we'll come back to the part of it as well when we talk about on food
Go ahead,
trace.
Jim.
But it was an AI startup 40 years ago, a little over 40 years ago, out of MIT actually. And their biggest failure was what Steve just said. Really smart guys, in all 3 stages. They were running out of money when I went there to run it, but the first one was they didn't even think about having a customer. They were building stuff that was of interest to them. And so the notion that you needed, what's that, Steve?
That works till you run out of money.
Yeah, and that's why the investors brought me in. But and so introduced to them the idea that they really ought to talk to some customers and find something that somebody really needed and would pay money for. Now, these were smart guys. They could develop that in there without much trouble, and they did. But the whole idea of talking or finding even and thinking about who the customer will be was a mystery to these guys. But that leads me to a segue to, because AI is not new, although, you talked about an application of AI for food trace, Steve. So tell us about that.
Oh, we'd like to use AI to optimize the supply chain for the restaurants, make sure they don't have minimize waste, make sure that the supplies come at appropriate time. I think there's lots of opportunities for AI in the supply chain. But I'd say to date, we've been focused on this. Let's meet the regulation mandate, collect a bunch of data, and then we'll come back and optimize it.
So there would be additional value to the customers beyond meeting the regulations.
Yeah, beyond being compliant. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Go ahead, Ray. I interrupted you.
I was going to let Ray have a shot.
No, I was just saying
he's
it's just time delivery and is what Stephen is talking about. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and also if you have too much of something that, you can have flash sales to specials to make sure it doesn't go to waste, and having insight when this is going to happen enables you to do better planning.
Certainly. But especially with food though, I mean, if you'd be able to tell if a product's been sitting on the shelf for too long and needs to be disposed of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is important.
So we've been talking about this and we keep aiming at restaurants and that makes perfect sense. But something that Ray just said about that, are grocery store chains targets of this? Because they're absolutely. Okay.
They have to comply, but that's probably not a target for food trace. And the reason is that grocery chains have pretty sophisticated back office IT systems, and they could probably do the record keeping themselves.
Certainly, yeah. So as soon as that barcode is read, they know it's off the shelf and it's time to reorder at a certain level.
Exactly. So they have sophisticated IT. We thought a better approach, and there are many more restaurants than what they call as RFA, retail food outlets.
No, I was just thinking, I know a lot of restaurants go through Cisco with an S, not Cisco with a C for food deliveries. And yet I also know Cisco with an S delivers a whole lot of food to grocery stores. So they're split in both ways. And where my brain went was, if restaurants are the target in one place and they're getting supplied there, then that would include, I know Cisco delivers to small the smaller grocery chains, which is why I went there.
Mm, yeah. I
Jim,
have seen Cisco trucks with an S. I've never seen a Cisco truck with a C, but
No, so when the food delivery is made to a restaurant, we have a mobile app to allow them to scan it to create the CT receive event that the food has been received from the mobile app, and we have a portal to show what's been received, to create the sortable spreadsheet and email it to the FDA, and to look at what's pending to be received.
Mhm.
Yeah, when the delivery is sent from the distributor to either the RFE grocery store or to a restaurant, the distributor has to send a message to them saying that the delivery it's called a CTE ship message, to say that the shipment's been made. That they can expect it. Then when it's received, they use our code to scan it in to say that it's been received. And then for the sortable spreadsheet, we create that based upon the receive events.
I'm a fan. I works on the whole white label thing too. All right, Ray. Today we give Jim the last question. So, what's your last question?
I think both these products are fascinating, and I can see multiple potential customers in many different fields. I mean, obviously, the Kaleidoscope is what's fascinating me, because I've done that for a while with various different companies, and I helped one company develop a tracking system for what we called white truck servicing of electronic equipment in the field. And so I think, yeah, it's probably unlimited, especially to smaller companies, which definitely need that.
So what Ray just said is he needs a big banner to put on the side of his 49-foot nuclear powered bus that he can drive all around the U.S. Advertising it. That's what I heard. Isn't that what you meant, Ray?
Well,
that and his virtual bus, but
you can pay him a couple of cents a mile. He'll be happy with that. It'll cover his gas.
Yeah.
All right, Jim.
Yeah, really a lot of potential in both those products.
All right, Jim, you get the last question.
okay, so 4 or 5 startups. You're still going strong, Steve. But you do it sometime. You do it not in the winter in Chicago, so that's a plus. Those are things you can do from wherever you happen to be at the time. Do you think these will be the Kaleidoscope and Food Trace will be the last 2, or like we were talking earlier, there'll be another one coming down the line?
Who knows? It depends upon when a good idea shows up.
I was going to say it depends on the ideas, right?
I mean, I've enjoyed working with the UIC, University of Illinois at Chicago students. They seem to have a lot of good ideas, and it's great to be working with young people.
Okay.
It is. That's what keeps me going teaching. It's I always plan never to retire and to teach, but that was a benefit that I really hadn't anticipated, which was working with the students is amazing, actually.
All right. So then I'll ask you, what's the final thought? Two questions. What's the final thought? Your final thought you'd like to impart on our listeners about success in business? And 2, how do people get a hold of you?
I guess success in business. My final thought on success in business, I'd say it doesn't come easy. You need to persevere.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yes.
Hitting all the points.
I love it. My phrase is be too stubborn to quit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That sort of sums it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does.
really. Yeah, it does.
Similar. That's the definition, Fred.
Again, we the three of us have talked about that oftentimes of being too stubborn to quit. All right, so then how do people get a hold of you if they want to hit the get involved your two new either of your two new apps?
steve.eick@gmail.com.
Once more.
steve.eick, so Steve Eich @gmail.com.
All right.
And 630-561-7897 is my mobile number.
Gutsy man.
630-561-7897. Now, I'm really excited about these opportunities. Is it both of them, we sort of stumbled onto something that I could easily see taken off.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's always that way. You stumble upon an idea that it's not like I'm going to come up with this. It's sometimes it just, apple on the head and go, that's gravity.
Just this thing, each business, you're trying to solve a problem for people. And I like Kaleidscope because there's 24 million companies that a whole bunch of them got this problem. I like Food Trace because there's about a 1.5 million restaurants and entities in the food supply business that have been told by the government that they have to do this. And not just that, it makes sense to get the diseased food off the market. People get seriously sick on this. I read all the background studies on the FDA about, the cost benefit analysis for this, and it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they really thought hard about the regulations and what do we need to do to protect our food supply. And, for a bit of IT work, you can have much safer food and not get sick from, I guess, being in Mexico a lot, experienced more than my share of food illnesses here. I don't want that to happen to other people.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to touch that one. I'm not going to start the international incident on making a wise ass comment. Okay. We want Steve. Got you last comment?
Like that comment.
Nope, it's all good. Usually I'm the one that foments or causes international incidents with my mouth, so we're not going to let that happen today, right, Ray?
Right.
All right, this has been another episode of Pillars Principles with Ray Pillar and Jim Treleaven, interviewing our guest Steve Eich of Kaleidscope. And what was the food track one called?
Food Trace AI.
Food Trace.
So Kaleidscope and Food Trace AI. If you need to get a hold of Steve, you can listen earlier and here's email or his cell phone. We'll be back next week, hopefully, with another episode of Pillars Principles, bringing you the principles of success in business. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Woke up early, dawn's out shining. Coffee brewing, thoughts aligning.